Hello everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Tree Week Virtual Assembly. We've had a great time fundraising for and partnering with the Whatcom Million Trees project over the past week, including our successful work party, which removed ivy from over 60 trees. Here with us, we have 4 members from the community in and around our school. I'll hand it over to each of them to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Lydia Sweats. I'm a senior at Seahome, and I'm the president of the Environmental Club.
Hi everyone, my name is Chuck Shelley, and I'm a science teacher here at Seahome High.
Hi everyone, I'm Susan Hutton, and I'm the executive director of the Whatcom Million Trees project.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Wong, and I direct the Sustainability Engagement Institute at Western Washington University.
So to start us off, Lydia, from the perspective of a younger person on this panel, how do you think climate change will affect your future?
I think that learning about climate change has definitely led me to take an interest in a career in the environmental field. I would love to work in energy and sustainability or water quality or air pollution, somewhere in that zone. I also think that climate change will affect some of the decisions I make in my future, of course, but specifically I want to be in a community where the natural areas around us are preserved and that the people around us are, I can easily find people who are dedicated to working towards a solution or part of one.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Shelley, I know from being in your class, and I'm sure a lot of other students do, you like to encourage your students to, volunteer outside, help out with the environment, and we're just wondering, why do you think that's so important?
Thanks, Oz. I know in our community we have many organizations that are working to improve the area and the greater community at large. And so when opportunities come to my attention, I try to share those with the students because they may not be fully aware of what's available and all the action steps we can do. And I know when students join a work party, for example, planting trees or removing invasives, I think they walk away feeling more connected to the community and feeling like they made a difference, even on a small scale for those 3 hours at a beautiful location in Bellingham. And so I think encouraging young people to take action is one way to definitely improve the environment, tackle climate change, but also bring people together, and it feels good to help. So I like to encourage that with students in my class.
Yes, thank you.
Susan, why is partnering with schools like ours important for your organization?
We are a primarily volunteer-driven organization. We have 2 paid staff, and so all of the other work we do out of the generosity of our community. Working with high schools, I think, is especially important and valuable for us because it gives us the experience of working with an age group that we don't interact with very much, which is really helpful to us, but it also gives you, students as volunteers, this experience of working with each other to do something that you wouldn't be able to do by yourselves. And this on Saturday you removed ivy from 64 trees, which is just amazing. And if you think about it, you have preserved all the carbon that those trees sequestered before you walked up to them, and all of the carbon it will continue to sequester, and you allowed them to continue to be able to photosynthesize and to continue to grow. And that single act that you did with your classmates is going to go on and live beyond you. And that's just a marvelous thing to do and incredibly meaningful. And it's important to have that connection to be able to do that kind of work with other people, because the daily work of working against invasive species or other environmental tasks can be emotionally draining, and it's just really strengthening to have that experience of doing it and to have that memory of doing something, especially for those of you who are seniors shortly before you graduate. And it's just a cool thing that we get to be part of, and we're really thrilled that you allowed us to do that.
Thank you, that's very insightful. So, Dr. Wong, as many of the students watching this will one day pursue higher education, how can those passionate with the environment remain engaged as college students?
Thanks for asking that, Oz. I wanted to sort of follow up with what Mr. Shelley said in that, as you know, this is Earth Week, and up at Western, we've had a full week of Earth Day related activities that focus on social equity and justice and conservation and the environment. And so many opportunities for students. And we at Western also partner with Watcom Million Trees, and there are so many opportunities for students to be engaged, whether you're at a large research university, community college, technical college, or a small liberal arts university. There are so many opportunities and professors that are really passionate about sustainability that just continue the good work that you've been doing in high school with engagement at that higher level.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Lydia, what are some ways that youth can make a difference in the environment?
I think, I mean, it really goes back to what Mr. Shelley was saying, like going to a work party and getting your hands in the dirt and making a difference. I think it can really help just kind of with your mindset and outlook on the problem and on how your community is working against it. There's City of Bellingham work parties every Saturday at 9 a.m. and every time I go to one, I wake up at 8 and I'm like, But once I get there, I always leave feeling better, and not just like the work that you're able to do, but there's so many people I've interacted and connected with there that I just never would have connected with otherwise. And I've made some really like had some meaningful conversations with people just from like other generations and just people from all different walks of life connecting to work on the exact same issue at this moment in this place. So I think that's really beneficial. There's City of Bellingham, Sand Enhancement Association, Walk a Million Trees. There's a couple clubs at Western that host work parties. Yeah, I think it's really good to get out there.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Shelley, how can the topic of climate change be taught in schools to, maximize the students' understanding of, why it happens and what we can do to help?
Yeah, I think students are going to be most strongly impacted if they feel that there's hope and that they are part of a solution and that there's opportunities for action. I heard Lydia say that after a work party it just feels good, and it gives us a sense that we're working on this together. And I know that sometimes climate change can sound gloomy and scary, but if we work together and take action steps, then I feel like it gives us hope. It makes us feel like we are tackling a common problem, and the learning that would happen when there's action along with education, I think is the most powerful. So if we can do that as a school, include more service in our curriculum and partner with agencies who are doing lots of good work, then I think our students will understand the science of climate change and also feel like they're making a difference in a positive way.
Thank you.
So, Susan, how have you seen changes to the environment affect our Whatcom County community?
In our community, the changes that I think all of us would say are the most notable are the long, hot, dry summer days that we have. Our fire season used to begin around July, and now it begins as early as April, and that's a remarkable change. And along with that kind of wild fluctuation, we see it mirrored in rivers. The Nooksack River goes way over the flood stage, and then it gets down to a real trickle, and it makes it hard for salmon particularly to complete their life cycle. And it also means that we have a longer wildfire season, which is particularly concerning, because the snowpack is smaller. But again, the kind of work that you all did allows the trees, particularly these 64 that you liberated, to counter that and to regulate temperatures a little more, to minimize heat islands. And so, there's certainly a change, but there are also changes that we're making to counter it. And the work that you're doing, and hopefully others will continue to do, will try to bring that in a closer balance.
Cool, thank you.
So, Dr. Wong, what can be done from a social science or policy standpoint to mitigate mitigate the impacts of climate change?
As I'm listening to my fellow panelists here, I've been trying to think about a way that we could legislate or make hope a policy, because there is a lot of gloom and doom in climate change. But one of the things in working with college students is that there's so much innovation and energy and intelligence that I think that there's hope for that. But I think a really basic thing that folks can do if you're 18 and able is vote. And one example I have is our current Commissioner of Public Lands in the state of Washington advanced to the general election in November with 46 votes in August. And those 46 votes meant the difference between a vision of a natural resources commissioner who values legacy forests versus one who's would have been a little bit more production oriented in terms of forestry. So those 46 votes really made a difference, and it's hard in today's political situation to really find hope because there's just so much confusion. But I think that voting is a really critical civil engagement activity, and electing officials who can advocate for and pass really good legislation and policy will mitigate some of the problems we're having with climate change. So I would say civic engagement for sure, but also don't be too despaired.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is our final question. But if we have anybody else who would like to chime in, it's a pretty big question. Does anybody have any opinions about that?
Sure. I'd like to ask Dr. Wong why it might be the case that our youngest voters are the least likely to vote.
Wow, that's a great question.
It worries me.
Yeah, I do see a lot of disengagement, or the data shows disengagement with like the 18 to 25-year-old voting bloc, and I'm not sure why that is. I know up at Western, before last year's election, we had a major get out the vote push, but I think part of it is that particular age group, they have so much to worry about on a day-to-day basis. I mean, at college, they're worried about their grades. They're worrying about paying rent. We have, even at Western, we have a really high degree of food insecurity. And I think when people are worried in their day-to-day activities, like, voting's the last thing on their mind. Mm-hmm. And they may not think that, like, policy, big P policy, impacts them. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really critical when you're looking at the data. If we had engagement from the younger demographic, it really could have been a different outcome. So,
thank you.
Lydia, as a younger person who's probably just now turning 18 and has the ability to vote, what do you see among your peers in terms of engagement with voting and public policy?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, most of my peers weren't able to vote, like, yes, presidential election, and then there's local elections. I haven't voted. I turned 18 in November, but later in November. But I definitely, there's people that come into the school and make sure everybody's registered to vote. Like, I was registered to vote 2 years ago because of the group that came in, and the AP Gov class does a lot of push for it. And so I think at Seaholm and in high schools around Bellingham, there's definitely a push to get prepared to vote, maybe in college. Yeah, and then also, like, in terms of voting, I think it's important not only to, I think it can be overwhelming to think on the, like, big national scale, but I think some of those, like, local elections are the ones that are really most important. So even just staying educated on what's going on, even if you can't vote just yet, like, just learning about what's going on in your area, in your county, I think it's really important.
Absolutely. There's a saying, all politics is local. And when we think about, the Whatcom County Council or the Port Commissioner or the City Council, those are the ones that probably impact most people, day to day.
Yeah. I think that that's an important piece of it too, that people really focus on federal elections or state level elections, but in terms of the policies that actually do affect where you live and where you go to school, there's a landmark tree ordinance that's before the city council right now, and there are lots of, I mean, not just environmental policies, but lots of policies that are determined locally, and it's remarkable how much of a voice you can have. I used to live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and there was a climate bill that was before council, and we had preschool students, we had elementary school students, and the bill was not expected to pass, but we had a couple of really passionate high school students who stood up and spoke at that meeting, and it passed unanimously. I mean, you can have a really tremendous effect just by spending, a half an hour to go to a meeting.
Absolutely. And, even if you can't vote, you can be part of advocacy, for
Yep.
sure.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there were 3-year-olds.
Dr. Wong, I didn't know that statistic about the 46 votes. That was really insightful. And I think that's just a great example of it can come down to the wire, and I just don't think if you're really concerned about, the trees and our environment, it's important to speak your mind and vote, because something like that actually does make a huge difference in how our environment is going to be for the future of our state. So.
Absolutely.
So, Susan, what are some other ways people can get involved in direct action around Whatcom County, both with your organization and with others?
Yeah, we are one of many nonprofits that are active in Bellingham, and like Lydia said, there are City of Bellingham work parties. Also, the Whatcom Land Trust has work parties, NC has work parties. I'm sure that I'm going to forget somebody if I keep listing, so I'm just going to stop right there. But there are lots and lots of ways to get involved, and you can really tailor your interests and what kind of activity you want to be involved in. The Whatcom Million Trees Project does work parties, but we also do advocacy for laws that we feel like are protective of the environment. And so if digging in the dirt isn't your thing, there are ways to write letters, collect signatures for petitions. There are lots of things that are really meaningful. And actually just writing your own letter to your representative. I used to do a lot of close work, again, in the city of Ann Arbor at City Council, and before meetings, the council members would say, has anyone heard about this? Anybody heard anything from anyone about this? And if there was one person who had written about something, it would receive a different level of attention than if nobody had commented about it. So, there are innumerable ways to be connected and to do environmental work and also social justice work that are meaningful to you. And I would be delighted if anybody wants to get in touch with me, and I could help to guide them. My email is susan@whatcommilliontrees.org, and I'd be really glad to point you in the right direction or talk about things that you're thinking about or ideas that you have.
Thank you.
I love that at that level. There's something really gratifying about getting dirty in the dirt and taking away ivy, and I've got blackberry scratches to prove it, but there's a role for everybody if you're not able to or you don't like to do that kind of stuff. There's a role for any activity level or any accessibility level to really make a difference.
Yeah. Education, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Is there anything anyone else would like to add?
I'd be curious to know what you think about, what was it like for you to do this work this week and to do all the different projects you undertook as a student body?
So this is the second year we're doing Tree Week. Oz and I were both on the representative council last year, and what's really important to us is doing projects that impact more than just Seaholm. So we thought a project that commemorates something that lots of people at Seaholm are passionate about, that has impacts beyond our school, was really important. So that's why we decided to bring back Tree Week this week, and this year, because we think it's really important to engage outside of our school with nonprofits in Western and make a difference. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to give a lot of credit to you, Miles. Tree Week was kind of your brainchild last year, and I'm really glad we've been able to do it again. We've been working with our freshman representatives on some aspects of this project to, kind of pass the torch to them in hopes that Tree Week can happen again and again for years to come. I think, it's a really important fundraising and community opportunity, and I would really be sad if it didn't continue. So I hope that it can.
Mm-hmm. So the freshman reps helped us with our Thrifted Fit Day, our One-Off Spirit Day. They helped us advertise for this panel and for the work party, and so we really hope they can continue this project after we graduate.
Yes.
Are you two looking forward to graduating?
Yeah.
You too, Lydia?
Yes. In terms of the environmental club, the project we've been working on this year is like a waste reduction project that we've been collaborating with Resources for. They're a sustainability organization in town, and they redesigned some of the recycle and waste compost signs, and their goal is to get those signs throughout different schools so that there is a unity between elementary and high school all the way. And so you might start seeing some shiny new signs pop
I've
up.
seen 'em.
That's
and
great.
Take a look at them.
That's
Mhm.
great.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Sounds like it was a great week.
Yes.
Great year.
So, thank you, all of our panelists. And with that, we've reached the end of our time for this morning. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and engaging with an environmental cause this Tree Week. Please remember that every anchor class has a yellow envelope, and we encourage you to donate whatever you are able to. All the funds raised will be donated to the Walk a Million Trees project. The anchor class with the most funds raised will win a sweet tree as the prize. Thanks again to our panelists and everyone else who made Tree Week 2025 a success. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right.